Good evening, indie community, and welcome back to Splam. That is self-publishing like a motherfucker, the not at all safe for work podcast where we interview fellow self-published authors and pick their brains for the secrets to their success. With me this evening is my co-host Claire Taylor.
Hi.
Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm doing great today, actually. This is my first day back of writing since I hit my head, so I feel really good.
All right, we'll get back to that head-hitting stuff in a second. We also have with us two of our co-hosts from Authors and Dragons podcast, Rick Gualtieri and John Hartness. Hi, guys.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
Oh, and I'm Robert Bevan.
Nobody asked.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. So, Claire, I guess you can start off with your news. I remember you being sick. Did we talk about you hitting your head last time?
I don't know if we did, because I hit my head, so I don't remember much. But, so about 3.5 weeks ago, lucky me, pulled the winning ticket and got food poisoning really bad. And then on one of my sprints to the bathroom, I passed out and fell backwards and hit my head and knocked myself out. So,
did you learn the secrets to time travel?
Yes, I did, and then I quickly forgot them. So that's been something that's why I was like quote unquote sick that week, because I slept for 3 days after I got back from the ER. But I'm on my feet again and writing words. They're coming to me when I summon them, so I'm really happy now.
Oh man, that sounds pretty bad. But you know, my Nintendo Switch crapped out on me, so.
So it's almost the same thing. You know, traumatic brain injury or your video game console taking a shit.
Oh wait, Claire, Claire, I know you were sick, but did we talk about your head injury?
Don't you pull that shit with me. Yeah, I have forgotten pretty much every appointment that I set. And I'm just like, sorry, my brain's dumb. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So
I don't have a head injury as an excuse. I just forget every appointment I set. Because I'm a horrible human being and don't care about other people.
Yeah, if my phone doesn't tell me I'm supposed to meet with you, then I wasn't supposed to meet with you.
I just started doing this with my phone after I missed one of my daughter's guitar lessons.
Oh man, there's some childhood trauma.
More like that they're going to charge you for that shit anyway.
Yeah, well, there's that, but it was spring break, so I didn't even realize it was Friday.
You should have told her you were busy mourning the Nintendo Switch.
Well, no, that just happened a couple days ago.
Oh, that might have been revenge. She's like, forget about my guitar lesson. Fuck you, Dad.
Anybody got any news in the world of writing?
Yes, I do. I'm happy to announce that Tantor Audio has picked up the last 3 books in the Black Knight Chronicles Urban Fantasy series. So they've taken books 7, 8, and 9, and that means that book 7, All Night Long, which is available now, go buy that shit, will be available on audio much, much sooner than it would be if I had to deal with getting it recorded otherwise.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, pretty happy about that.
And speaking of Tantor, you know, we obviously doesn't do the listeners much good since this is audio only, but we saw the cover for Shingles Volume 2 today.
Yes.
What do you guys think about it?
I think there are a lot of stories in this collection that have to do with butts.
There's like 2,
There
right?
are only 6 in the whole collection. A third of the collection is butt stuff.
Mm-hmm. Was the previous one not as much butt stuff?
Nah, the previous one was more jizz.
Oh, okay. So you can now advertise it as 33% more butt stuff. That is completely wrong.
You just made our marketing plan right there.
I see lots and lots of Photoshop in my future.
I mean, okay, so I will say the math on that is incorrect, but you can probably twist the numbers.
John, you're more right than you know. I think the first book in the second set is my Terror on Hypo Beach, isn't it?
Yeah, which is all about butt stuff.
Right. It's not in the title.
But it's all through the book.
So, yeah, lots of butt stuff coming your way, listeners.
Whether you want it or not.
Cool. I was actually talking about the cover art when I asked the question, and I think it looks really cool.
I also think the cover looks really cool, but
I think the cover looks really cool, but all I can see when I'm looking at it is something staring at me from somebody's ass.
I kind of thought it was supposed to be a glory hole, but
I gotta take another look at this cover. I just saw a big ass eyeball.
Yeah, we just saw big ass.
I got not a whole lot. I am almost finished my first CNC short, which will be included in the 7D6 series.
You're getting up to a lot of fucking sneak attack damage with these D6s, bro.
Slimes and misty wieners, I called it. Thought you'd like that.
I got nothing. Yeah, no, that's your protagonist, sweetie.
Jessica Grant.
Yeah. Still a lot more likely to show up in one of your books than ours.
I do have Jesus in my books. Yeah,
so do I.
There you go. See?
Yeah.
It's almost like going to church.
I used to.
I'm ordained, so...
Yeah, actually, Jesus is even in the coming Shingles audiobook set with It Came From My Butthole. He's a major character in there.
He is. I think that's the funniest one you've done out of the Shingles set, too.
Oh, thank you.
I really liked that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones in this one because Steve's Put Your Hand Up My Ass, speaking of butt stuff, is on there.
Yeah, that one was good.
And Drew's is just a horror story.
You're saying this isn't entirely butt stuff, because from what I'm hearing, this entire collection is butt stuff.
No. Drew's is pretty much no butt stuff, and there's no butt stuff in mine.
Yeah, mine's just about a sentient washing machine.
Yeah, there's really not much sex jokes in yours at all, except the title. Yours and Drew's are pretty clean, actually. No pun intended about your washing machine horror story.
Hey, that's too far. Puns about washing machines, you've crossed a line.
If that's where I've crossed the line, then your line is way, way far. But we digress.
All right. Should we introduce our guest for this week?
No, I don't want to.
I'm just surprised that Skype is showing she's still here, so...
All right. Dear listeners, this week for you we have Kimbra Swain. Hi, Kimbra.
Hello.
Good. Would you like to tell us about yourself?
Absolutely not.
This will be a short episode.
I'm just a independent author. I write urban fantasy. I've been doing it since September of 2017. 2017. Well, I think I hit my head too. I don't have any excuses though. That's about it, I guess. I write Fairy Tales of a Trailer Park Queen is my main series.
That caught my eye, yes.
Yeah. That's usually, everybody looks at that and either they're completely offended, which, yay, or they're like, what is this about?
How can you be offended just by the title?
People get offended about everything.
I mean, we did just spend 10 minutes talking about butt stuff in book titles, but...
Yeah. I'm glad I didn't miss any of that.
Our listeners are somehow wishing they had figured out how to fast forward podcasts. Yes, I know you can fast forward podcasts. I just don't count on our listeners knowing how to do that. So, Kimbra, whereabouts in the U.S. are you from? Because I think you might be even more southern than me.
I am. I'm from Alabama, born and raised, still live here.
Yay!
See, Bob spent a lot of time around the Gulf Coast, but he escaped.
Get the hell out of there.
To another continent for a while.
And then they sent him back.
Yeah.
They found enough return postage to send his ass home.
A lot of postage.
You don't know me.
Oh, no, she's right.
Yeah, all right, but...
It's less now. Bob's lost weight since he got home.
That's the
kind of.
So, Kimbra, what's the inspiration behind Fairy Tales of a Trailer Park Queen?
Well, I did 2 books that were not related to the series when I first published. They're big world, conspiracy, urban fantasy, And there's a little part in one of them where the people are actually in the state of Alabama in a town near my home. And that was my favorite part of that book to write. And I thought, you know what? If I enjoyed this small part of this, then I need to find something that, pertains to the South and the culture that I grew up in. And there's a lot of connotations with the South, but I think there's a lot of good things that go with the South, and that's really what I wanted to focus on, and yet still be urban fantasy. And I was just riding in the car one day, and I don't know why I thought about Trailer Park Queen, but it did, and I was like, well, what if the queen is a fairy queen? And so from that point on, I just thought, why would a fairy queen live in a trailer park? And I built my story from that.
And you say you started in 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
And you just released the 12th book in this series.
Another one of these.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to bring that up is one of our recurring themes is to make Bob feel bad about his productivity. So I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way.
Yeah, I'm seeing a shitload of books on your website there, Kimbra. So why don't you tell us about a little bit about your process?
Actually, I didn't know a whole lot about indie publishing when I started. I kind of got encouraged into the world. I was beta reading for Orlando Sanchez and Shane Silvers. And I wrote when I was in college and sent manuscripts off and got all those wonderful rejection letters. And I thought, well, this is all there is to it. But that was in 2003. And I didn't think much about it since then. And I just did some beta reading and stuff. And I said something one day to Shane about it. And I was like, I used to write when I was in college. And he was like, well, why don't you write now? Well, because there's no sense in me doing that. There's no profit in it or whatever. And he was like, ha, 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 ha. And he said, well, why don't you give it a try? And so he kind of pushed me that way. And then I asked Orlando about it. And I think I even said something to Rick about it. And all three of them were like, yeah, do it. Give it a try. And when I published the first one, it was like a drug. And I started writing, and it didn't stop, and it hasn't stopped since. And so I write from book to book. Like, I'll start a book, I write it in 3 weeks. In a week, it goes to an editor and to a beta group. And then from the beta group, it goes to an art group, and then I publish it. So every 5 to 6 weeks, I put out a book.
That's incredible.
I think that math checks out.
Yeah, that, look, I release a lot of shit, and that kills me. That's impressive.
I'm actually looking forward to slowing down just a little bit. Once I finish the series, the last book will come out in July. I'm ready to kind of back off, but I'm going full time too around that time. So it's,
Let me just give some advice from mine. Going full time right when you release the finale in your most popular series. Prepare to have the shit scared out of you.
Well, I think I've already got the shit scared out of me just having the idea. But I had 2 spinoff series for the main series already planned, and I've already started all the branding and everything for it, and it's starting to catch on. And I have people, I think some people wished I'd go ahead and start it now, but it clearly starts at the end of the other series. So
going back to, you say you want to slow down a little bit. What does that look like for you? What does the ideal pace look like for you?
I mean, it's not going to be too much slower. I still think maybe 8 weeks between. Give me a little more time to really focus on launching, because I don't really do a whole lot of launch prep or anything now. I drive it mostly through my Facebook group. My Facebook group is about 1,000 people. It's extremely active. And so a lot of that goes to them. I do Facebook Live, and I do giveaways on release day and things like that. And sometimes I bring other authors in to do things like that to celebrate. But I'd like to be able to plan some of that more in the future, to have a little more outreach and be able to really, I've never had a number one, on release day or anything like that. That's just because I roll through it. And so it gets up to 2 and I'm good.
Yeah, depending on the category, 2's pretty good.
Yep.
Most of mine end up being, and so that's a thing that I've just learned. Here I am a year and a half into, and I've just learned that, hey, you can go in and put them in the categories you want to put them in. I had no idea you could do that. I thought just Amazon controlled all that, but they don't. You can to some extent, and so I had no idea about that. And so I'm just now learning some of these tricks.
Oh yeah, you can definitely gerrymander your way to an orange banner. Gripes the guy who keeps looking at horror comedy and says, "None of these motherfuckers are funny. Get out of my category."
God, don't even tell me. Don't even get me started on the fact that like I spent weeks there fighting basically shifter erotic for like the top spot there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like every category is bear porn.
My fairy tales ends up a lot of times in fairy tale, folklore, mythology, and all of those are all reverse harem.
Yikes.
Yeah.
We should get smart and just do that. It's like, and just invade other things. It's like, here's the new Bill book. It is number one in East Albanian folklore.
Well, there was one time I emailed customer service, to like let them know what I wanted for my new categories on a new release. And what they did was they took the two that were listed as the examples, which were like kind of like home gardening or something, and they just put my books in those. And I was like, what? Like, no, that's the example that you guys have on your, on the email. And so I punched like number one in the category, not to brag, but my book is really big with home gardening or whatever.
Well, I'm surprised though. I thought the end of the story was going to be just, you wouldn't believe how many fucking books are at home and gardening.
Yeah, and sometimes when if you put in your keywords weird, sometimes that'll just have a weird effect, because for a while there, one of my books was ranked really high in women's literature.
Oh boy.
And I just couldn't get it out of there.
Yeah, mine get ranked in like art and photography or something.
Gotta be. Whoa.
Those artistic covers you have.
Yeah. When I was the first time, I actually emailed customer service and asked them, my book's funny. I wanted to be put in comedy, because then comedy was a little bit easier to rank for, and but it's not meant to be funny books. It was meant to be like books about comedians, like that sort of thing. And that was a subcategory of performing arts and stuff, which was a subcategory of some other bullshit that my book didn't belong in. But it was nice to be able to say, look, I'm ranked high in comedy.
I'm good at comedy.
I'm funny, goddammit.
Yeah.
Now, so Kimbra, you're currently going through a rebrand on your Fairy Tales of a Trailer Park Queen series. So tell us a little bit about why and what your process is.
The why, there's two whys. The obvious reason is the original covers, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I'm looking at them now. I think they're fantastic.
Were not specifically urban fantasy. Which is, and honestly, when I launched the books, I didn't know that's exactly where they belonged. Because it's, it's a lot of it has to do, is colloquial. It's, I don't know. It's got magic and fairies and that kind of things in it, but I just didn't know that it fit in there because it doesn't take place in a big city. It takes place in little, small, rural town. But it is urban fantasy, in the very core of it. And when I was looking at where my book landed in other people's also boughts, the book didn't seem to match the other things that were there. And in some ways, that's a good thing. You look at it and go, oh, this is something different. But really, honestly, researching it, the human mind looks at things and goes, oh, this looks like what I like. And so that's what people click on. And so the biggest reason was I wanted to move into that urban fantasy because I wasn't getting a lot of male readership either. My group and a lot of the people that I talked about with the book were female. And I felt like the books were good for both male and female. They're not female targeted. But the covers were definitely, I think, more female targeted.
The covers that are on your website right now, those are the old ones?
Yes.
Well, yeah, those are the old ones. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can see her rebranding of the first cover, Bless Your Heart.
The first three are done right now. I have an artist that's working on them, and she gets them done. She does about 2 a month for me, and she just started doing them. So
yeah, I would say that the new ones definitely have more of a urban fantasy vibe, because the old ones are, don't get me wrong, they are nice covers, but they feel more PNR, paranormal romance.
Yeah. And they're not. They don't have Any sex scenes are fade to black just because I get queasy sex scenes. And so.
See, I have a similar problem. I always fade to black because I can't write sex scenes without it being comedy.
Yeah, I like reality in my writing, and so we don't want to have goofy sex because that's usually the way it ends up. But and the other reason why I wanted to rebrand is if you look at the new cover, there's a kind of a symbol there between the bless your heart, and it's a branding thing, and I'm learning a lot more about branding.
Oh, that's neat.
And so that symbol carries on through the series, and then when I have the 2 follow-up series, both of those have their own logo. Mm-hmm. I have started like a t-shirt shop, and I have some items and stuff that'll be going up on a store, and everything's branded to those symbols now. And so even when I produce just things for my site or anything like that, I use kind of the background from Bless Your Heart to use it, which is kind of a galaxy looking thing. And so it's really pushing me in a branding area where people look at it and they go, oh, that's one of Kimbra's. And so I'm trying to rebuild that whole brand.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, I just spent some time last summer repackaging the first 3 of my Bubba the Monster Hunter books to tie them together with kind of the same logo and maybe make the first 2 covers not look like a quadriplegic 12-year-old with 5 minutes of Photoshop training did the covers. That's not fair. I have way less Photoshop skill than a quadriplegic 12-year-old.
Yeah, I'm going through, I guess my 3rd redesign for the Bill series. Moving from covers that had a really strong brand element, but also kind of, I guess, didn't really fit the current crop of urban fantasy, to ones that are more character driven. But I think also it doesn't hurt to once you have those covers, you have those covers. So if you ever need to switch back or decide to things go in and out of vogue, well,
that's true.
Yeah. I think Rick, your last run of covers felt a little more horror-centric than urban fantasy-centric. And the ones you've got now are more urban fantasy feeling.
Well, that's good. That is good to know.
Yeah.
Because somebody's like, oh, that doesn't look urban fantasy. God damn it. So I know your pain, Kimbra.
Yeah, and I did a lot of research, and I did a lot of asking people, what would you think if this changed? How do you feel about this cover looking this way? I ran it through my beta group and my art group before I ever announced any of it. I ran it through fellow authors. John Logston actually helped me a lot out with it. Got me in touch with a new artist, and so it was kind of I'd read something on one of the urban fantasy groups on Facebook where they hate where people change the coverage in the middle of it, and I was like, gosh, when do I launch these? And I plan to launch them, all at one time in July, and I got to talking to a group of people. They gotten together, some authors, and I was just like, what do y'all think? And they were like, we think you're sitting on money. And I was like, oh, I don't like to sit on money.
Yeah.
I like to put it in my bank account,
And recoup what you spent.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And I didn't mind, as far as when it comes to covers and stuff, I actually have multiple covers for multiple series already done. That's something I learned last year. I may end up changing them before they ever get published. But I felt like they were part of my advertising and part of what I was doing to better it in the future. I try to think long term on things, and but with this, I was just like, I got to put these out, and I have seen a significant increase in my income with the rebrand.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. So, I was very, very nervous about it. And I'm still, I'm looking at the Amazon page now, and 1, 2, and 3 are the rebrand, and it shows books in the series, and it says 1, 2, and 3, and number 4 is not rebranded yet, and that drives my OCD crazy.
Trust me, I also understand that one.
So, I'm anxious. The artist is supposed to be doing 2 more this week, and I'm like, is it Friday yet? Is it Friday yet?
The good thing there, though, is that, somebody who starts a series, they might not even be going to your Amazon page. They might just, hit the link at the back of the book and be like, hey, okay, take me there, let me buy it, and,
Yeah, a lot of times they do. Yeah, they, And once you get to the third book, if you're not hooked with my books by the third book, you're not going to be worried about the rest of them. And if you are hooked, you don't care what they look like. So.
Yeah, I feel you there.
So tell us about some of the other stuff you're writing, because I see your Path to Redemption series here.
The Path to Redemption series is the first series that I did. It's like a big world. There's an agency that kind of controls the supernatural world. They keep an eye on things that start happening and try to combat it. And there's two main characters in that book, and it actually is a dual POV book.
Oh, nice.
And then, actually, I shouldn't say dual. There's actually 3 POVs in it. You actually get sporadic chapters from the bad guy in the book. And so you get to see the villain's perspective, especially in the first one. The second one is a third perspective, too. But the 2 main characters, and then there's always a third perspective in the book. And I'm currently writing the third of those. It's been kind of slow going because the demand for Trailer Park has been so high. But I'm working on it, and I should have it finished in the next couple of months to be able to put it out. Because I do have a lot of people that like those, because they're really traditionally more urban fantasy. They're longer books than the Trailer Park books. They have humor in them, but they're not quite as funny as Trailer Park. Trailer Park is, a lot of laughs. And so it's a lot more, to me, it's a lot more emotional, the Trailer Park part is than what the other is, but it's more of an adventure thriller type thing.
I was going to say, I'd like to go back with the history of that. You started this in 2017. You said, sorry, what's the name of the series we were just talking about?
Path to Redemption. Yeah.
You said that was your first series.
Yes.
And you're currently working on the third book. Meanwhile, you're on like 12 of Trailer Park. So what was it like? Day one, new release, first series. How was did you just slam it right out of the gate? Were you?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. I think I was on one of the book sites today, and somebody was talking about they got their first edit back, and they were very upset and they wanted to quit. I was like, look, don't do that, because, and they were like, I don't know if this is worth the money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, my first 2 books were complete washes. They were complete loss. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to keep putting money into this. And then I wrote Trailer Park. And even Trailer Park didn't pick up until like the 4th or 5th book.
Mm. So the first 2, were those both in the same series?
Yes, the one and two. And see, I wrote those in 2017, and I haven't even written the 3rd book of that. So I've gone a whole year written the 3rd book.
I got to admit, I don't have a lot of patience for the, I put up my first book last week. Where's my million crowd?
Yeah, that's. And I knew that wasn't going to be the way it was. I mean, Shane had warned me, don't, get discouraged with what's going on, because nobody knows who you are. They really don't. And there are some people that do hit it off like that, but most of the time you find out they've had a little help along the way.
Yeah.
And so that's being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right people.
I'm generally pretty happy to share with people that the first month release of my first book, I sold 9 copies.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just recently looked at my history. I sold 4.
Dude, 4? When I released Pop-Tart Manifesto, I would have been jealous of 4.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing wrong with getting help from people, but I think that it is misleading. Yeah, that's the part where it's like, no, just on your own, you're very unlikely for your first book. And like you said, I mean, for my series, it was around, I think I just released book 4 when I really started to see some traction.
And the downside, I found that, at least from the indie author side, I think it's a little different maybe in trad, but the downside is somebody who releases, who has the help, who then shoots up the charts or so with that first book, usually that is instant ego right there.
It's the same in trad.
Oh.
It's the same with traditional. I mean, and people who discount the fact that there's a lot of luck in this shit. I look, yeah, I'm sure you worked hard. We all work hard. But I wouldn't have a career if Kevin Hearn hadn't released his shit right when I was releasing my shit.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't any male protagonist urban fantasy when he and I both started. So everybody wanted the new Jim Butcher book, bought Kevin's books, then they're like, well, what else is out there? And I was it.
And the only reason I think anybody knows that Toma Bill exists is because I got lucky and I hit an Amazon glitch because I changed categories a year and a half after the book came out, and suddenly I ended up on the hot new release list because of an Amazon
Nice.
screw up.
Yeah, so Kimbra, I see that you have, for the first book in the Path Redemption series, you have a second edition out. So I'm curious what made you decide to do a second edition.
That was a very painful process. I went back and I pulled that book and I completely rewrote it. Not the story, but the style, because once I hit Trailer Park and into like the third or fourth book, like I said, I kind of realized where my writing was, who I was as a writer. And that first book, while it did reflect some of that, it was not my style. And it still isn't, because it was extremely difficult to go back and do that, because I didn't wipe the slate clean. I just kind of went through it and read it and tried to rephrase. And that was worse than writing a book without anything, just sitting down and starting writing a book.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me 3 months to do that. And then I had it re-edited and republished. And it's actually, the cover it's been changed 3 times. It still had the same look. It's just I've changed the characters on the front. So it was one of those things like I felt like I needed to do, because when I was going back and reading it hurt me to read it.
It's an OCD thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also, I think as you grow as a writer, anything you wrote a few years ago is going to look a little more amateurish. I know my first book does.
I think there's a certain writer who will look at that and be like, yeah, I grew. That's nice. I'm not that. I don't write like that anymore. And then there's another writer, another type of writer. And I think, Kimbra, I think we're both the same way in that you will look at that earlier book and be like, that's not my style anymore. And it's really fucking bothering me.
Yeah, it really did drive me crazy. It drove me crazy, and because I loved the story, but I just hated the way and it's still not perfect to me, but I can't bring myself to go back and redo it again.
There's also a very just sort of business-minded aspect to making sure the first in your series is good, right?
And see, an Intuition, which is the second book, it still has a touch of that amateurish, but I'm not going to go back and change it, because if you can get through Abomination, you'll like the series and continue to read it. I just need to write the rest of them.
I went through something very similar when I wrote and published the first 3 Black Knight Chronicles books, and then I sold that series to Bellbridge Books. We took a year and a half and tore the first 3 books apart before we reissued all of them. And there's a character in book 2 that died in the first published version of it. And some people who bought book 4, where he comes back, and they're like, what happened? I said, yeah, we rewrote that book. He didn't die.
Motherfucker. I remember that. I was just thinking, I was like, did I remember this correctly?
Oh no, yeah. That fairy dude, I killed his ass in book 2 the first time around, but when we rebuilt the book, he lived. I've been fortunate that there have only been a couple of people who called me on it, but yeah, totally did that. And that was painful, because it wasn't just me going back through. It was me having my publisher tell me everything that I did wrong with those books. The first edit letter was 14 pages single-spaced. Whew. And it started with, remember that I love the book, I love the characters, and I love you as a writer, and this is gonna hurt.
Yikes.
And now I write that edit letter to people all the time.
It can be a really good investment, though, of a writer's time. If you're going through a series and you're not seeing the read-through from book 1 to book 2, and you've written, like you said, Kimbra, a lot of other books, and you've improved, it can be probably, I did this with my Jessica Cray series. I went back to book 1 and had an editor look over it and do some of the story stuff on it, just because I was like, I feel like it's not a complete novel, because it wasn't, because I intended it to actually, the first 3 books of that series were all supposed to be in one book, and then I broke them up, because I was like, I can't charge enough for, a 800-page book of comedy, and who wants that? That's awful. So I broke it up, but the arc wasn't quite right. But as soon as I went through and I wrote rewrote the last couple chapters, kind of gave a little bit more closure, developed some themes a little bit more fully to launch into the rest of the series, and my read through improved by at least 10%. So yeah, I mean, it hurt every second of it, though.
Oh yeah.
And I've had an additional. It wasn't really a developmental edit, but it was a really deep edit on Bless Your Heart, because it was the same thing where I was like, this is the first book. This is the one that I need everybody hooked on. And so I had somebody go through it, and after it had been edited twice by my editor, and of course it went through my beta group, it went through my art group, and this guy edited and sent it back, and it had like 600 corrections on it, and I went, shit. What the hell? I thought this was a good book, and it was a good book, and it's but it's an even better book now, and I learned a lot from it myself, so that it made a huge difference, and so yeah, those first books are very, very crucial.
Yeah, and I find that it's very useful to work with different editors, because sometimes you'll work with one for a while and they'll get so accustomed to your voice and style that sometimes things slide, and you work with a new editor and they're like, why'd you do this? It doesn't make any sense. I was like, well, but Beavis over here, well, yeah, they've been editing for you for 4 years. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So ebook, are you doing print and audio?
I do have print of all of the Trailer Park. We're switching the, we're messing around with the covers on Plaster Redemption again. And so those will be in print soon. And the audiobook for Bless Your Heart is in production now.
Yay.
Awesome.
It took me a very long time to be satisfied with a narrator that had a Southern accent that wasn't Hollywood.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh, it's even worse. Like specific Louisiana accents.
Yeah. When I was in college, I was in English. I have an English degree, and I really didn't do a whole lot of literature. Most of the stuff I was in was in linguistics, accents, the origin of language. And so that kind of thing was very important to me, which is you kind of see that in the books as staying authentic was very important to me. And so I couldn't do a dishonor to the series without picking the right narrator. And I got fortunate. The lady that's doing it, her name is Kiera Stevens. She grew up in Georgia and she lives in Florida. And so she's very much authentic Southern. She said when she did the first chapter, I was just like blown away. This is so perfect, because it's not a heavy Southern accent. But it's because my main character is a fairy queen, but she has a Southern accent because she lives in the South and she's kind of blending in with everybody else. So it was nice to find somebody that didn't sound like Paula Dean.
I would think that's a hard thing to do if you're not going for making fun of the South, to find somebody that does a Southern accent. I think you just need a Southern person to speak normally or something.
Yeah. Originally, I thought I was going to do them myself. I just do not have the time.
Well, no, not with your record.
Yeah. You'd only be able to put out an audiobook every 4 weeks.
Yeah, when I hired her, she'll have the first one done in the middle of next month, so it'll probably come out in June. And she said, well, every 4 to 6 weeks after that, we can put a new one out. And I'm like, hallelujah, let's do it.
Nice. And then you can get into the lucrative world of audiobook bundles.
Yeah.
For more information on that, check out our archives. We had Eric Asher on here a couple weeks ago, and he talked a lot about bundling audiobooks, and I know I've done it and Rick's done it.
I just got the ball rolling today, thanks to that interview.
There you go.
Splam has helped me.
Which my husband has your audiobooks, Robert.
Oh, well, what a big sucker, because he's about to be able to get the first full 4 for 1 credit.
It's too late now. He's already got them all.
Well, and one thing about finding a narrator with the right accent, if you don't, your readers will crucify you.
Yes.
I've gotten savaged on some of the reviews for Amazing Grace because I didn't know to hold narrator approval when I sold the rights to that book. And yeah, her Southern accent isn't great. And the reviews reflect it.
Yeah. I've had several. I mean, a lot of my people were like, "We're so excited, but don't you dare get, somebody that don't make them sound like Julia Roberts." And
just get Andy McDowell.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I remember my favorite for Sunset Strip. My favorite audition. The woman got the attitude, everything perfect, but she had an Australian accent, and the character was from New York. And I was like, I really love the way she does this, but I just know I'm gonna get torn apart.
Just rewrite the whole book and set it in Melbourne. It'll be fine.
Search and replace. Yeah, search and replace for that location.
Control F.
Crikey, a vampire's biting me dick.
Yeah. So you say that you're finishing up Fairy Tales coming up soon.
Yep. It'll be done in July, which I apologize now that the final book is actually called Amazing Grace.
That's okay. I released mine like 2 years ago without doing any kind of research into, hey, how many books out there are titled, oh, Jesus.
Well, yeah, and I actually did do it and saw your book, and one of the reasons why I picked Bless Your Heart as the first book, like instead of Amazing Grace, is because I looked out there and I saw so many, and by the end of the series, it doesn't matter, but that first one did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I'm eventually going to put out a title, Morning Wood. I feel like, all right, Rick's done it, but I would have come up with that eventually.
I love that. Every time I see it, I'm like, holy shit.
I like to think eventually, like every comedy writer will reach that point where it's like, why should I not?
I think that so many of our books have reflected, why should I not?
On rare occasion, though, you come up with something that you think should be just an obvious title that, like, okay, I'm gonna look up and see, like, a million of these, and nobody and it doesn't exist. Like, yeah, I remember when I came out with Bigfoot Hunters, it originally had this whole different name, and I went on there and I was like. And I just did a search, and I was like, yeah, because all the Bigfoot shows, it was always like, oh, this show about Bigfoot Hunters, Bigfoot Hunters, Bigfoot Hunters. But there was actually no books using that. And I was like, I'd be stupid not to.
Yeah, all too often it's the opposite case. I thought of, this happens all the time, I find, but I was going to write one called The Sorcerer's Stoned. It exists.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I did the Wicked Dead, that was originally going to be called The Witching Hour, and then I found out that Anne Wright. Like, here's the thing: if there's only a couple books,
much,
if there's books out there that that are using the name, but it's like, okay, different genres and stuff. Oh well, not a big deal. But something when you see something that's big, it's like being like the perfect name for a lot of books would probably be It, but.
It's like that guy who listed a ton of indie horror books on Amazon a couple of years ago, and his name was Stephen King with a V.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah. And like the first review on everything is, this is not that Stephen King.
Yeah. He's like so highly ranked with so many shitty reviews.
Yeah.
But you gotta admire the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ball is not the brains, but the ball is definitely.
No. Yeah.
But I agree with you, Kimbra, that as you get later in the series, like if you called book 13 Amazing Grace, well, people are going to be searching for Amazing Grace Kimbra Swain. So.
Yeah, it definitely stops mattering as much as you get on in the series. I haven't even been, thinking of titles at this point. Like, you get deep in a series, you're like, whatever, just throw it up there. I just need to keep everything moving.
Yeah.
And I'm betting there aren't a whole lot of search results popping up for Fuller Than a Tick.
That's one of the great things about, Trailer Park is there is no end to Southern sayings. My problem has been trying to get the shorter ones.
Yeah.
Very long. But yeah, it's been great. And it's been wonderful because it's kind of led my series, the titles and the little idioms that, I put on the covers. And it was fun. The last 2 or 3 I actually The next one is called Fit to be Tied. And
as you move into the BDSM side.
There's actually a wedding in it. So, yeah. And so, it's been really, really fun doing those, and people get excited. And Fit to be Tied was actually named by one of my readers, one of my beta readers, because I was tossing around 2 or 3 different names. I didn't tell them exactly what was happening in the book, just some idea where their direction was going. And, so one of them actually helped me pick out that name.
See, that's cool that you got that, like, the cultural thing. Like up here in the Northeast, if we did that, it would be like book 1, fuck you. Book 2, fuck you, fuck you, asshole.
By the time you get to book 7, it's fuck you fucking fuck. We have not actually talked about marketing at all. What do you do for that?
What do I do for what?
Marketing?
Oh, marketing. I was exclusively Facebook ads until last month that I really started doing some AMS ads and getting some advice on those. I'd watched so much of the changes going on the Amazon that with me not knowing more about how to roll with those changes, I decided to stay out of it and pump more money into the Facebook. I run 3 or 4 different ads with Trailer Park on Facebook. One is for the box set, one is for the first book, and then one's kind of just a random concept kind of thing with a different target audience. And so, and then on the day of release, I run an ad specifically for a new release book. I do it for 3 or 4 days and pump a lot of money into it. And half of that is targeted to the people who already like my page, just as a, hey, here it is, here's the new one. Because I'm still surprised, even though I have 1,000 people in my group, I still have people who's like, oh, the new one's out. And I'm like, I've been talking about this for...
Yeah. So social media is awful that way, especially Facebook. There is no way to win with that.
They throttle that shit so much.
Yeah. But even in a group, you could have 1 million, everybody in your group talking about your new release, and 3 months later you'll have somebody be like, dude, I didn't know you had a new book out.
Yeah. Or you get the message of, hey, when is Bubba 3 going to be out in audio? And you respond with, summer of 2018.
3 years ago.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about the Facebook ads is in the comments you can go, and I've been fortunate not to have too many trolls. I've had a couple that you just delete and ignore their faces for the rest of their life. But, people that hadn't read the book, but then they look at it and go, oh, you're trying to be True Blood. I'm like, True Blood's a TV series?
But if you know an executive producer, I'm down.
Yeah. And I had, one person tell me that I was, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, so, I haven't had a whole lot of that, but then I like to go back and interact with the people that are there. And when I release a new book, I link it in the comments myself on my own ad. And so when people are scrolling through, they're like, oh, well, this is an ad for the first book. And look, there's 12 of them out. And people like that so that they can binge through.
That is super smart. I would not have thought of that.
I'm using my own ad to advertise something new without having to pay for it again. I'm cheating.
Nice. Guys, I gotta go update some links in the comments of my ads.
Yeah, and I use reader links to do most of my links, and so when I put one in an ad like that, I get a real good idea of how many people actually click through that ad. So
yeah, the tracking on reader links provides is really good.
Yeah. And that's the biggest reason why I do reader links is that tracking. I like to see, and it doesn't matter if I put one in, it goes up in Shane's group, or if it goes up on my Facebook page, on my website, my Facebook group, or if it goes up on Orlando's page. Each one of them I give an individual reader link to, and even when I share newsletters, I give each person a reader link. And that way, when it clicks through, I know where I'm getting the traffic from.
Yeah.
I like statistics, but I don't like to math.
Well, that's what we got Logsdon for. He and his people will do that shit for us.
Absolutely. Like, John, help!
We just advertise his stuff for free.
Yeah, John's great.
Yeah. Eventually, is his episode up yet?
I believe so. Let me take a quick look. Well, up as in, like, this isn't actually a real podcast yet because I haven't done that yet, but on YouTube.
Okay, close enough to up.
And John and I will be collaborating here in the future. There will be a PPD in Alabama.
Oh, cool.
So there'll be a southern branch of his PPD.
Yeah, John Logsdon is episode 3, and that's
okay.
Up. Episode 4 went up, I think, 2 days ago.
So you can find out more about Reader Links by going to our YouTube channel,
Yes,
which
and
I don't know the URL for because it's probably long, but if you Google self-publishing like a motherfucker, it'll get you there.
no, just Google Splam.
Or, considering that's the only place it is, if you're listening to this podcast, you already know what our YouTube channel is.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
you're a fucking wizard, man.
Fuck off, Rick.
Well, no, he's wrong, because I might get around to making this a proper podcast by the time this episode airs.
Now you have to do it just to spite Rick.
That's a good point.
I'm okay with motivating people via spite.
So much of my accomplishments in life have been due to spite. But anyway.
So Facebook is your primary source.
Yeah, Facebook is my primary, and I just, like I said, I just started doing an AMS ad, and I'm still in the negative on it, but it's actually getting a little more traffic. And I know it's one of those things that you got to be patient with. And I'm not good at that. I admit it.
Well, you got for a 12. What are you advertising on AMS?
Just the first book. I just have one ad running.
Yeah, with a 12-book series, I mean, you can be in the negative and killing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and AMS still doesn't report Kindle Unlimited reads. So.
Yeah. Why would you give people enough information to actually make informed decisions?
Yeah, they really don't. So.
Yeah. Now, your group is very active, and you've mentioned that you participate in Shane's group and Orlando's group. Do you find hanging out in other people's groups to be useful?
I think it is. I try to, if someone mentions me specifically, I like to respond to that. Anytime Shane talks, I give him hell just because.
He deserves it.
Yes, he does. I mean, everybody loves Shane. He's great. All his fans love him, and I'm like, he's a shit. The A1 asshole. I don't know why you guys like him. He and I enjoy that banter. And I have to admit, last year, he did a Facebook Live, and he mentioned Trailer Park Series, and for like 2 months, I had record sales.
Nice.
Like you said, sometimes it just depends on who you know. And so, anytime someone mentions me or says something to those, I kick in, and or if somebody asked a writing question, and I talked to him. I'm like, do you mind this? He said, not at all. I wouldn't go into some random authors group and do that. I've actually run across some of the urban fantasy authors who are starting to do book clubs in their groups, and they're reading other authors' books. And I joined one of the groups to kind of observe what was going on. Mm-hmm. I promptly left the group.
Yeah, I've heard of those turning it rapidly into dumpster fires.
It wasn't really anything terribly negative about the group. And in fact, the admins of the group told me that, I was welcome to interact with the people. And this was right before the new edit for Bless Your Heart came out. And I just mentioned, somebody said something about a grammar mistake or something in it. And I said, there's a new edit coming out, and it was actually launching that weekend. And I said, by this weekend, you'll be able to update it. And then the author contacted me, and she said, I'd appreciate it if you didn't talk to people. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. My bad. I talked to your admins. They said, fine. And she was like, yeah, I appreciate it until it's over with, and I don't want you influencing the read. And I'm like, that's fine, no problem. And I left the group.
Yeah.
Well, something. I guess I can kind of understand that, because I've heard tales of other people doing book clubs, and then the author that they're talking about enters that group and pretty much just obsessively haunts it. I probably wouldn't have said anything to anyone about not liking it or anything like that. Just be there for general questions if somebody had a question. But yeah, and I told her, thank you for featuring the book. Let me know how it goes, that kind of thing. But I think you run into a really danger there, because
For me personally, I have a rule in my group is we don't disparage other authors at all. If you don't like their book, that's fine. Don't say that in my group.
That's a really good rule.
In indie publishing, there's some books out there that are terrible. They really are. But it doesn't mean that they can't be better. And
I'm right here.
Well, and it doesn't mean that nobody likes them.
Yeah, it may just be, a personal preference type thing. And so my group is, I'm just like, you guys, we don't talk bad about other authors. We don't. And I let any author that wants to or anybody promote. You can post a link to any other book you want to in my group. That's fine. But we're not going to knock down other authors. And I won't have a book club like that just because there's too much negativity involved with that. So.
Yeah, I think I gave the concept of doing a twat waffle book club for a thought for about 3 seconds before I realized this is just a slippery slope to hell.
Because I wouldn't want another author to look at me and say, well, you let all these people say bad things about my book. How dare you? You're, that's defamation, and people start talking about lawyers and shit, and I'm like, y'all need to. But,
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of the author being able to chime in. Like, I think it creates accountability on the internet. I mean, God knows we need more of that,
Yeah.
It forces people to be a little more constructive with their criticism rather than just trashing something. But
yeah, but at the same time, Claire, there's plenty of non-professionals in this industry, and
what?
I'm still right here, guys.
Yeah, I know. Newsflash.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely some people will probably try and pick fights with people, but you just kick those authors out. Like, you just say, okay, bye.
I was going to say, Bob, can you imagine us doing that? And they'd be like, in your group, we're going to do Bill the Vampire. In my group, we're going to do Critical Failures. Just because, for some reason, there's still that pervading, we don't like each other attitude out there for some reason.
Oh, or because of our authors and dragons.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, there's the people who think you guys hate each other, and then there's the people who think you're the same person. And some of them might be the same people.
Yeah. Man, that Bob really hates himself. That explains his books so well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm members of several other authors groups. I'm a member of yours, and Rick's and Faith Hunter's, and I like to go hang out. I don't usually promote my stuff a whole lot, but like you said, I answer if there are writing questions. If somebody asks about one of my books, I answer. I found most of the ones I'm in to be pretty welcoming, but I also don't engage with the indie community as a whole very much.
Is that because you don't like fighting people?
Well, it's because I straddle this weird line of, because I run a small press, I feel like my perspective is different from most people who are strictly self-publishing. So I don't want to get in a fight over what's better or worse, because the answer is, it's your call. It's your career. So I don't care what decision you make with your career. Rock on. Go for it.
You're probably smart that way, because like John, you probably know 10 times as many people as me, but I've probably made 10 times as many enemies as you.
Yeah, I don't talk trash about other authors, because the ones I'd like to talk trash about are like doing wildly better than me, and I just come off like a spiteful piece of shit.
That's the other part of it, is that it's almost impossible to not look like an asshole if you're talking trash about another author, because either you look like you're the guy who's selling a whole lot of stuff and you're talking bad about this person who's just trying to make a living, and you look like the big bad, or like, I can talk all the shit I want about Pat Rothfuss and he still outsells me every day and twice on Sundays, and I just look like I'm jealous. I am.
And I am, yeah, right.
Those things are kind of the case, though. I mean, like, if you're in my opinion, every ounce of energy you're putting towards talking shit about someone else in your industry is effort that you're not putting towards your own work.
Yeah.
And you start to see a pattern with people who talk the most shit, that they're just very unhappy with their career. Like they're, maybe they have a sense of entitlement, like I should be making more money than this. And so they see people who they perceive to be making more, the kind of money they deserve, and they go after them, or, whatever it is. But I mean, generally, I feel like the best thing is if you have the urge to talk shit about another author, like, stop and refocus on your own shit. Because, like, there's no direct competition in this. So there's no need to get all up in arms.
The only exception I make to that rule is honestly, if somebody is just a dirty player and like, and stuff, I'll admit, I lose my shit with them.
Well, yeah, it is upsetting, especially when you feel like they have more resources going towards being a, shady person. But at the same time, like, you kind of never know. And I truly believe that readers will weed out the shysters over time.
See, I'm not so sure. I honestly am not so sure about that.
Rick's from Jersey. Shysters are the whole state.
We're getting off topic here, so maybe we'll save this for a whole other thing, because like we're here to talk about Kimbra, not what pisses me off.
Oh, yeah. Kimbra's here. Hi,
yeah,
Kimbra.
The podcast's only so long. We can't talk about everything that pisses Rick off. Well, we've run about an hour, and that's what we try to keep this at. So, Kimbra, Suck It Up Buttercup just came out. What's coming next?
Today on Amazon, there is a pre-order for a new series called Chantilly Lace.
I saw that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
The name of that book is Frivolous Magic, and I'm kind of hitting a new adult audience with it. It's a girl who, finds some books in her attic and starts dabbling with some magic, and then all of a sudden, all these bad things start happening to her. And it still has some of that Southern feel, but it's kind of a different. We're not in the trailer park anymore. We're at a college campus, and she has a group of friends, and she keeps finding herself in situations where she's using this magic, and she keeps telling herself it's not real. But then it gets worse and worse for her. And so, if anybody knows, I like to torture characters. And so, for a little bit, I will be torturing. Her name is Chantilly Lace, but she goes by Lacey because she hates to be called Chantilly. I would be too.
That's fair.
But that's kind of common in the South, because people will name their kids these ridiculous names, and then they hate them and they end up going by something else. And so that falls into that line of kind of stigma there. But I see a lot of people ask about young adult, new adult urban fantasy, and it is straight up new adult urban fantasy. So
fans of The Order on Netflix would probably really dig this.
Oh.
Yeah, it's going to be Order. It doesn't have any vampires in it, but if you think of the age group of the originals, that kind of thing. So Sabrina, yeah, those, yeah. And that's the kind of the group I'm trying to hit with that. And part of it is, and the cover I actually bought was a pre-made cover, and it kind of gave me all kinds of plot bunnies that started hopping around in my head.
That's a great pre-made then.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like you got a lot of great covers on here, but this one, like, is really awesome looking.
Yep. And when I came across it, I was like, I got to have that. Like, the moment the girl posted it, I was like, okay, that's mine. And she's actually done the second cover already, too, so that I can go ahead. And this is a book, I'll be doing these in between some of the trailer park and the spinoffs. I have that planned out. And then the next trailer park book will be out at the end of May, which is Fit to be Tied.
All right, and what's the number? Where are we? You're finishing Trailer Park in July. What's the number for the last book? How many are we going to have?
15.
Okay.
So I've got 3 more.
Looking at your website, I was wondering if it was going to be 15 because you've talked about OCD, and that would give you 3 rows of 5.
Right? I'm even having my best friend, she's building me a shelf for when I go to cons and shows that holds 5 books across, and it's 3 levels. And the shelf is specifically for my OCD self.
Is that shelf going to break down? And if so, send your friend my contact info, because holy shit, I'm always looking for new shelves and stuff for conventions. That's one of my obsessions.
Yeah, she does woodwork, and it's actually my assistant. I don't pay her yet. One day I will. But she does woodworking, and she's we've perused other people's stuff at other cons and stuff, and she's gonna put together a shelf for me. And so yeah, I'll forward her information to you.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I saw one that I liked at a romance signing, but I got to get somebody to build it for me because I am completely inept with. I'm not allowed to use power tools.
I've got a hookup for you.
Awesome.
It's hard to take people's money when you ain't got no fingers.
Yeah, I know, right? And I like money. All right, so folks can, by the time this comes out, folks will be able to pick up the Frivolous Magic, which is the first Chantilly Lace book, and they will be able to pre-order Fit to be Tied, which will be Fairy Tales of a Trailer Park Queen 13.
That's correct.
And where can they find your stuff?
I'm Amazon exclusive, so everything's on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited.
And online, you got this group. Are you welcoming to everyone?
Absolutely. Kimbra Swain's Magic and Mason Jars.
Okay.
The group was named by the group too, so they like this Southern thing, so we kept it up.
And her T-shirts are funny.
Yeah, I love doing that. I did a little bit of graphic design and stuff when I was in early college days, so it's been nice to do some of that stuff for T-shirts.
I don't want to drag this on forever, but speaking of merch, is that all you do is T-shirts, or do you do other stuff?
No, right now I have just T-shirts, but I have a store that's going to launch as soon as I can get all the pictures taken. That's the big thing about merchandising, is it's painstakingly forever to do things, but I'll have jewelry.
Yeah, I was thinking jewelry because the little symbol thing on your new cover.
Yes.
I thought that could make some cool jewelry.
Yes, I have those already in hand. I'm making jewelry. I've got tumblers, like stainless steel tumblers. They'll have decals, and then, just like regular car decals. It's a lot of stuff. I've got hats that say "Bless Your Heart." They're kind of a distressed looking hat. They're really cute. And so, it's going to be a inclusive store. And then I'll have signed books and signed book cards, which I do 6x9 postcards. And people that I can't afford a signed book, I can send them this postcard with a signature on it. And it's like the cover of the book.
Nice.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we wrap it up then?
Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on for you, Kimbra, and your production is you are a machine.
I'm a tired machine.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kimbra. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said anytime.
Oh. Yeah, actually, it might be interesting to have you back on after your audiobook's release and see what kind of splash that makes.
Yeah.
And by then, we'll be able to talk to you about audiobooks and the horrors of going full-time at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Kimbra, and thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on Splam. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll subscribe and like us and all that shit. And join us next time in the next leg of our journey towards self-publishing like a motherfucker.